In July, Donald Trump Jr., Nigel Farage and Senator Alex Antic are touring Australia, and Victoria Police in Melbourne want compensation. This morning, organisers were advised that they will be charged for police attendance due to the threat of left-wing protesters, notwithstanding the fact, of course, that the speakers have nothing to do with the protests and have already paid for their own private security. Joining me is one of the headline acts, Liberal Senator Alex Antic. Well, welcome to the program, Senator. What do you think of this push by Victoria Police for you to cover the costs of left-wing protesters?
Yeah, well, Peter, look, it's sort of an extraordinary development, but not unexpected. You've outlined what happened last year to Nigel Farage when he was on tour with the New South Wales Police Force. But really, I mean, one of the troubles here, I think, is that what we're seeing now is this increasing, use of bureaucracy in order to pick and choose events, as you say. And when you've got a situation where the organisers of this event have already hired a private venue, it's ticketed, liquor licence, and have their own security, then to be put to the added costs of having to hire the police force to roam the public realm because of the threats of protests from left-wing activists, and there are, and I mean they have been advertising those protests, as I understand it, over the last week. I think that sets a very dangerous precedent for free speech. This is almost a free speech tax.
Well, clearly, I mean, it's a tactic. I mean, if you want to bankrupt an organisation who's bringing out speakers or perhaps get them to think again about even putting on an event like you're being involved in July, have a few protest signs go up. I've seen them around the streets of Melbourne already. Put the weights on the police. They'll send you a hefty invoice and you won't do it again, will you?
Yeah, that's right. And it's hard to imagine this happening the other way around for a left-wing show. I mean, apart from anything else, Conservatives tend to be more polite with their protests. But this, I think, is happening around university holidays, and presumably all the arts and gender studies students have got nothing better to do but cut up mum and dad's hose to make a bong. So they're out protesting against what is basically just an interesting set of speakers. I mean, I count myself in that. Perhaps I'm a sideline of the whole show, but really it does set that tone. I mean, if you don't like a show, then one way of shutting this down would be to threaten protests and let the bureaucracy do what it does. We saw this in South Australia with the Walk for Life, which is a pro-life organisation that were put through the ringer by SA Health with bureaucratic guidelines over COVID. And it almost stopped the whole event. So we're dangerously dangling into this bureaucratic interference with free speech once again in this country, Peter.
Do you know when we have big pride rallies or pro-trans marches, are they sent the bill for police attendance?
Look, I don't know. I haven't heard of any instances, and I suspect if they had, we would have heard that screamed from the rooftop. So I haven't heard of any of that. It does just seem to be something which is aimed at Conservative events. And remember, this is the Victoria Police that spent the better part of 2 years walking around telling people to put on their mask properly and get off the beach when they weren't, kind of taking it to protesters out there. So it's hard to imagine that this couldn't be something that couldn't be dealt with very calmly and very clearly. And this would surely fall within the remit of police services under the normal guise. It's hard to imagine why an organiser would get slugged with this. I think it's a very slippery slope and a very dangerous precedent to set.